This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. More than a decade of legal wrangling and political turmoil over the handling of Winnipeg's police headquarters when it was being built could be coming to an end. The remaining defendants in a city lawsuit over the police headquarters have agreed to settle. CBC's Bartley Kivas has the story.
Winnipeg's downtown police headquarters opened years behind schedule, tens of millions over budget, and ended up the subject of 2 scathing audits and a 5-year RCMP investigation. It also led the city to file lawsuits against dozens of people and companies.
The allegations involve fraud and deficiencies related to the construction. Now, most of the defendants have agreed to settle.
This is a victory for the citizens of Winnipeg. It provides certainty. It provides $21.5 million to taxpayers. It avoids a minimum of $6.4 million in additional legal costs and years of legal proceedings.
The proposed settlement would end the city's legal action against the defendants, including Armic Babakanians of Caspian Construction. Winnipeg's chief administrative officer said this is the best possible outcome from the civil lawsuits.
They were the only tools available to the city to attempt to get accountability from the named defendants. And in the end, a civil action is about money.
The settlement has no bearing on a decision by a judge who determined former Winnipeg CAO Phil Schiegel accepted a $327,000 bribe from Babakanians. Schiegel appealed that decision. The mayor says the outcome of that appeal may close a chapter, if not the entire book, on the police headquarters saga.
I guess that's yet to be determined. I would believe probably in large part, but I can't say that for certainty at this time.
The decision also makes it less likely the province will call a public inquiry into not just the police headquarters, but other real estate and construction scandals at City Hall. When Brian Bowman was mayor, council voted to ask the province for that inquiry. Gillingham said he's not asking the premier for one now that there's a settlement.
I wouldn't want in any way to muddy or jeopardize what's in front of us right here.
Premier Heather Stephenson wouldn't address the inquiry when she was asked about the settlement.
The process has taken place the way it has.
CBC News reached out to Armic Babakanians, but we haven't heard back. This deal has to go before council next week. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Every year, hundreds of children in Manitoba age out of the child welfare system. Advocates have long said too little is done to offer transitional support and set these teenagers up to succeed. Now, as CBC's Brittany Greenslade reports, they want to see the age of majority dropped so kids aren't left behind when they turn 18.
The walls of this office are lined with stories of success. Pictures of kids who were in care who found the right support.
What is it like for you when you look up here and you see the smiling faces and you see the success stories of people you've been able to help?
Awesome. It feels awesome to know that we could have been a part of their life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
But Marie Christian knows that's not the reality for so many others.
Many of those young people we have lost. I've attended too many funerals for young people who grew up in care and either felt hopeless and decided to take their own life or fell into addictions and the addictions overcame them.
The director of Voices, Manitoba's Youth in Care Network, says too little is being done to offer early transitional support for these kids before they turn 18 and age out of care. This year, 625 Manitobans will be in that position. The Care Network wants to see that age cutoff scrapped entirely.
18 is an arbitrary number. Let's focus instead on relationships. Who is this young person connected to? What are they connected to? School? Do they have housing? Are they in community?
For Dyson Spence, he had none of that. He was just 8 years old when he was first taken from his family and placed into the child welfare system. He says his life started spiraling. He ended up in jail. By 13, he was a permanent ward of CFS.
And then that drew me down a path where I would just commit crimes again and go down the same cycle. And so I went back to jail for a really long time.
Now 20, Spence is in university and wants to help others in the same situation he was in. He says too many of his friends ended up in jail or living on the street, with no place to go.
And it's stressful as well because you're basically turning from a teenager to an adult and you really don't have the support.
According to the 2022 street census, 50% of homeless people were involved in the CFS system. 2/3 experienced homelessness within 1 year of leaving care.
Well, it is a long-standing issue.
Manitoba advocate for children and youth Sherry Gott says the problem isn't getting any better.
That is not acceptable. You know, our children deserve better than that.
And change needs to happen before more kids get left behind. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province's Minister of Families isn't ruling out making changes to the welfare system. She admits there is work to do. Rochelle Squires says the province also needs to do a better job of connecting youth with existing support services. The province is opening 6 more mentorship hubs to help with that. Squire says too many resources go underutilized, like a $350 rent top-up, which less than 20% of eligible people take advantage of. Today, Squires apologized for failures by the system.
I'm sorry. This has been a system that has had many instances where families have not been supported, children have not been supported, family reunification has not been paramount. And we're changing that.
Tonight, police are looking for a missing teen from Steinbach. 17-year-old Morningstar Bear, who also goes by MJ, was last seen in Steinbach Friday afternoon. She's 5'4", 115 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. She has piercings in her ears, nose, and lip. Bear was last seen wearing a gray jacket with a fur hood, blue headphones, and black shoes. Police say she could be in Winnipeg or Brandon. Anyone with information is asked to contact RCMP or Crime Stoppers. The experience of an elderly patient who had to endure a cold medical flight to Winnipeg from Brandon came up in question period today. NDP leader Wab Kinew took aim at the Progressive Conservatives over the privatization of air ambulance transfers. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
79-year-old Eleanor Beekler of Brandon went to hospital February 1st because of pain in her chest. On February 3rd, she was airlifted from Brandon to Winnipeg to have an angiogram at St. Boniface Hospital. Beekler says she wasn't afraid of flying, but she had to endure cold temperatures on the flight because she wasn't properly dressed, having gone to the hospital in a hurry. Beekler told CBC about her journey. She was taken by ambulance on stretcher from Brandon Regional Health Centre to that city's airport, but was required to walk through snow to the plane. She says she was only dressed in a housecoat and had slip-on shoes, and there was no blankets on the airplane, which she says was cold. Beekler says once she boarded, she had to sit in a buckled seat with no blankets. Once she got into Winnipeg, she says the ramp to exit the plane was covered in snow. NDP leader Wab Kinew raised concerns about her experience, pointing a finger at the privatization of air ambulance services.
The answer to the question of where do we go from here, I think the first step has to be higher standards and the enforcement of those standards on the people who are running these services.
Deputy Premier Cliff Cullen responded to concerns in the House, citing a request for proposals that went out to improve medical aviation services.
This, I think, RFP will also build a more modern critical care service that supports the evolving needs of Manitobans, including those in northern Manitoba.
Beekler says she's speaking out to help improve the service for others. CBC has reached out to Shared Health for comment. While Premier Heather Stephenson didn't attend question period due to a funeral, she did make an announcement which the government hopes will help grow new businesses. Stephenson says the PCs are following through on a budget promise last week to add $50 million to the Manitoba First Fund. The goal is to help businesses access capital funding. The announcement was made in the Sterling Lion Business Park in southwest Winnipeg, where Manitoba First is setting up its office. The Premier says an earlier investment of $50 million is already paying off.
This initial investment has already generated more than $100 million in private sector interest. Businesses and stakeholders have told us that Manitoba's growth and competitiveness relies on greater access to capital across all stages of business development.
The Manitoba First Fund is independently run by a 5-member board. Westcap Management is the first fund manager to receive capital from Manitoba First and plans to establish offices here in Winnipeg. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, this next Winnipegger is an international wrestling star, a rocker, an author, actor, and producer. Now, the street he grew up on here in his hometown of Winnipeg bears his name. A section of Wordsworth Way in Westwood has been renamed Chris Jericho Way. Jericho was at City Hall today to receive that honor, and then he received this, the Queen Elizabeth Platinum Jubilee Medal from the Premier this afternoon.
It's an honor. You can't even put words to this. And my mom passed away about 15 years ago, and she would be so proud of my grandma and everybody else like that. So it's a great day for me, and I really appreciate this, and I do not take this for granted.
Chris Jericho and the All Elite Wrestling crew are putting on a show tonight at the Canada Life Centre in downtown Winnipeg. One of the country's fastest and most inspiring seniors has died. 99-year-old Lightning Lou Billinkoff passed away yesterday. He took up running very late in life after he had a heart attack at the age 89. Billinkoff became one of the fastest nonagenarians on the continent. In 2018, at the age of 95, he ran the 50-meter dash in 15.61 seconds. That made him the fastest in the 95 to 99-year-old category, according to the World Masters rankings. He's survived by his sons Errol and Lorne. Our Brandon reporter Chelsea Kemp joins us now from Brandon University. A review came out this week, Chelsea, all about keeping sports safe on the campus where you're standing. Tell us all about that.
So a review was released by Brandon University, and it's all centered on their student athletic program. The report was triggered after allegations of sexual harassment were made against a former Brandon University Bobcats women's soccer coach. Now, this list has been waited for, and it includes about 36 recommendations, all centered on helping keep athletes safe.
So 36 recommendations. What are some of the main ones, Chelsea?
So there's a lot in there. One of the big ones is a code of conduct. They're hoping that they can create a safe sport plan committee, along with a code of conduct for the coaches. They want to better track incidents. And they also want to have a better way of responding and helping make sure there isn't sexual violence on campus. And a big part of it is the idea to reinstate the Sexual Assault Advisory Committee, because it hasn't actually met on campus in 3 years.
Now, I understand also today, city staff met with the Construction Association of Rural Manitoba. What was that all about?
So this whole thing was triggered by the Park Community Centre in downtown Brandon. This community center has been a topic of debate for several years now in Brandon because City Council can't seem to decide if they want to demolish it, repair it, or rebuild it. Now, they recently sent out a request for proposal, seeing what it would cost, seeing what a new building would look like. And unfortunately, they rejected all 3 proposals they received because it ended up being a little bit past their price point.
Now, how did the Construction Association feel about council rejecting all 3 proposals?
Well, it's a tricky situation because companies creating these proposals, they take a lot of time and a lot of money. On average, they can cost around $30,000 to $40,000. And it can also be trouble for the city. It hurts their reputation when it comes to putting out RFPs. And at the council meeting, it was brought up there could be legal repercussions from this. Now, the city is working with the Construction Association, and the whole point is that they want to be better and make sure projects like this don't have hiccups in the future. They actually met today, and the executive director of the Construction Association really praised them because the city seems to be trying to do best practices based on the feedback they get.
Well, it's great they're listening anyhow. Tomorrow, you're covering a court case for us, one that has links to the FBI.
Now, this one is super interesting, but also a little tricky. So, Brandon police ended up investigating an 18-year-old here in town after getting a tip from the FBI about a cyber attack. Now, when they executed the search warrant, they discovered what they think are ghost guns. And ghost guns are what someone uses a 3D printer, and they actually print a handgun. And police are alleging this is what they found.
Wow, a 3D printer to print guns in Brandon. That's a little frightening. I'm glad you're following this case for us, Chelsea. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Janet. I will talk to you soon.
And meteorologist John Sauder is following our always interesting weather.
Yeah, exactly.
It was much calmer today than yesterday.
Yeah, the winds in the south and the snow across the north, really all part of the same system, which is still giving a little bit of snow to northern Manitoba, but not like this. Our reporter in Thompson sent this video yesterday from Thompson. Ethan Butterfield sent this, and you can see that there's plenty of snow there. It turned out to be about 30 centimeters as forecast in the Thompson area, and winds at times were gusting to almost 50 kilometers per hour. Through most of the day, 30 to 40, but up to 50 late last night. So certainly lots of snow left in Thompson. Couple more centimeters on the way tonight. So those snow plows will be continuing to be busy, and we'll see a couple of more, or at least some periods of light snow tomorrow in Thompson. All right, current conditions in Winnipeg look like this, -3 right now. I'm kind of stuck there for the last few hours, and that was my forecast high. North winds at 7. Yesterday there was a 0 following the 7. Peak gust yesterday was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at Winnipeg. At the airport, and it was 82 kilometers per hour. So plenty of highways were closing due to visibility and icy and snow-covered conditions, and some of those highways didn't open up until this morning. We've got another band of snow here, mainly staying south of the Trans-Canada Highway. I haven't seen a flake in the Winnipeg area, but really close to us. Go down Highway 59 and you'll run right into the snow. Light snow, maybe a centimeter or 2 out of this, and then it'll continue to move across and out of the region. Forecast modeling has this just on the edge of Winnipeg at 9 o'clock tonight and then moving away. So can't rule out a few snowflakes in front of the headlights as you travel around tonight, but at least we don't have those gusty winds. So as that low moves away, it kind of stalls. That's important in the weather story, because as this high tries to force its way across the prairies in the coming days, kind of a squeeze play between the high and the low, and north winds develop, not just Thursday, but Friday and right through the day, and they get strong once again, although that high will tend to clear us out as we get into the weekend. Let's talk about snowfall in the north over the next 24 hours. This model putting down another 10 in Thompson, 6 in God's Lake, and lower amounts as we look outside that one swath of snow. Wind now across southern Manitoba, and you can see it does get up there a little bit Thursday afternoon. Moving into Friday afternoon, though, that's when, at least in the southern Red River Valley, we see winds over 60 kilometers per hour, 52 here in Winnipeg, and not quite that strong in northwestern Ontario, but still breezy. Over the next 24 hours, we don't see a whole lot of snow here or out into Ontario, but then you advance that another 24 hours into Friday at around supper time, and we've got 2 or 3 centimeters here. So some nuisance snowfalls. Most of that here in the Winnipeg area will be likely Friday through the day and on into the evening hours, and pretty similar in Brandon and out into northwestern Ontario. Tonight's low, 12. That's a -12. Cloudy, breezy. The winds start to pick up overnight, and they will blow tomorrow out of the northwest, 30 gusting 50, and there is a chance of a flurry, and only -8. So cool next few days. A high of only -10 on Friday. Flurries or light snow, -8 Saturday in the sunshine, and then we start to warm up a little bit. And in the 7-day forecast, Janet, I've got a number that doesn't have a minus sign in front of it.
What? Is it a typo?
It's not a typo.
What? Okay, thanks, John.
You bet.
Now he's got our attention, doesn't he? Senior military officer Danny Fortin was accused in a sexual assault case. Now he's suing the Prime Minister, the federal government, and the military. See why after the break. The senior military officer who was in charge of getting COVID vaccines distributed across Canada is now launching a $6 million lawsuit. Major General Danny Fortin has named the Prime Minister, the federal government, and the military. In December, he was acquitted in a sexual assault case, but he says the way the allegations against him were handled has damaged his reputation. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg has details.
In a statement of claim filed this afternoon in an Ottawa court, Major General Danny Fortin says the Canadian government and military defamed him. He was abruptly removed from his role heading Canada's COVID-19 vaccine rollout in May 2021 after allegations surfaced. A woman says she was sexually assaulted more than 30 years ago when they were students at the military college in Montreal. A criminal court cleared him of that charge. The Quebec judge said he believed the woman had been sexually assaulted, but did not believe beyond a reasonable doubt that Fortin was the one who did it. A military tribunal has also cleared him of wrongdoing. Fortin has always said he is innocent. In this lawsuit, he says before the allegations, he had a stellar career and reputation. He calls the investigation negligent, rushed, and tainted by political motives. He accuses federal government officials of asserting their influence to have charges laid against him. Fortin has been on paid leave since the allegations surfaced. He says the military is refusing to reassign him to a new position. His claim says the reality is his reputation is so tarnished the armed forces won't accept him back. Fortin is one of a number of high-ranking Canadian military leaders since 2021 to be sidelined, investigated, or forced to retire over sexual misconduct allegations. None of the allegations in Fortin's claim have been proven in court. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
The latest numbers in Canada's real estate market are out. Both sales and prices are down sharply from the peaks of a year ago. But some market watchers say there are signs a rebound is coming. CBC's Anis Haidari has the details.
Home sales in Canada were down in February by 40% compared to a year ago when interest rates were still rock bottom. But times are changing, say economists.
Prices continuing to slide for now, but probably a few months down the road, we might see prices stabilize.
And while price increases have slowed down since the height of the pandemic, housing costs are still high.
I think it's going to take a little bit more time to see that type of froth coming back, and which is not a bad thing, really, because we're still looking at very steep prices in certain parts of the country.
While housing prices in parts of Ontario and BC have dropped from their highest points, a lot of those costs are still higher than before the pandemic. And markets like Calgary, Regina, and St. John's are notably still close to their peak prices. There are also fewer properties on the market these days. Newly listed properties down in February compared to January.
The majority of people, even if they want to move, they're staying put because they're too scared of these high rates. They're too scared of, what they're going to get for their own house. Is their house even going to sell? And so we're not seeing that many listings.
Those high interest rates could be shifting. A pause on interest rate hikes might encourage buyers and sellers to jump back into the market. And while it doesn't have data yet, the Canadian Real Estate Association says it expects more properties to be ready for the market in the spring. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
The ongoing allegations about China meddling in Canada's elections have led to growing concerns about racism directed at Chinese Canadians. There are worries about a backlash, despite decades of warnings from activists about interference by Beijing. CBC's Lisa Shing has the story.
New photos.
After almost 30 years of criticizing Beijing, Seng Xue says she's faced all kinds of harassment from the Chinese government.
My cell phone number all were published online to the advertisements, telling that I am offering sex service. We had the hunger strike in front of
Despite several attempts, the journalist says Canadian authorities largely ignored her warnings Beijing was harassing her.
I kept silence for a long time.
With Ottawa announcing it's investigating claims China meddled in Canada's last two elections.
One country, two systems is a brave experiment.
Some vindication for those who say their warnings have largely gone unheeded until now.
Well,
better late than never.
China accuses some people in Canada of spreading lies that it's interfering in Canadian politics, while the PM defends one of his own MPs accused of being involved. Allegations Justin Trudeau has suggested have racial undertones. This activist warns against focusing on race in the search for what really happened.
I think the first thing we need to be very sure about is that racism is not being used as a shield to deflect from the real issue at hand.
He says that means calling a public inquiry and creating a foreign agent registry. But there's concern that done without care, that could lead to more attacks and accusations, especially as anti-Asian racism is on the rise, a result of the pandemic and worsening relations between Canada and China.
Members of the Chinese community are quite worried about people may somehow label them as medium or agents of the Chinese government.
As the investigations continue, there are calls for that work to involve consultations with the Chinese diaspora, those who are, after all, the targets of the interference. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Tens of thousands of people marched through the streets of France again today in opposition to a critical pension vote tomorrow. A series of strikes and protests like this one have paralyzed the country over the past few months. Unions and workers are angry at the government's plan to make it harder to collect a retirement pension. Tomorrow, Parliament will work out the details of the bill to increase retirement age in France from 62 to 64. Some polls show 70% of voters are opposed to that. Critics say France's pension system is complex and costly. Several attempts have been made over the years to change it over the last 4 decades. All have ended in protests. A Pakistan court has postponed the arrest of former Prime Minister Imran Khan until tomorrow. Police have been trying to arrest him over charges he sold state gifts while he was in power and concealed those assets. It set off a second day of violent clashes between Khan's supporters and law enforcement. Violence erupted after hundreds of protesters surrounded his home in Lahore today, trying to prevent his arrest. Some threw rocks and bricks. Police fired back with tear gas and water cannons. Khan denies any wrongdoing. The former cricket star served as Pakistan's prime minister from August 2018 until April 2022. Airsoft is a combat-style sport where players shoot at each other with fake guns. Some 35,000 Canadians play it, but it's been banned in many countries. And now, as we hear from Aaron Collins, fans fear the sport will also end in Canada if the plastic weapons are included in Canada's proposed new gun law.
Even up close, hard to tell this machine gun from the real thing. Only the sound gives it away. This gun shoots plastic pellets, not bullets.
This sure looks like a real gun.
It does, and that's kind of the point of Airsoft. They're cool because they look realistic, and that's why people like to collect them.
At this Calgary Airsoft shop, business is good. It recently supplied most of the replica guns for the hit HBO show The Last of Us. But in the real world, these toys too real for Canada's proposed new gun law. If passed, airsoft guns like these could be prohibited, making it impossible to import or sell them.
They want to ban anything that looks realistic and like a real firearm. So if the bill passes the way that it is, that would mean the end of airsoft.
And airsoft is growing in Canada. Tens of thousands of Canadians play it as a sport, pumping tens of millions of dollars a year into the economy. Some players worry the federal gun ban could mean the end for their hobby.
I would have to find something else to do. Honestly, I've spent a lot of money on this and I really enjoy this, so it would actually really suck if C21 completely banned this sport.
Still, even toys that look this real can be a problem.
Like 20% of all violent firearm-related crime in Canada is committed with replica firearms. So they are creating a danger.
For its part, the federal government says it's working with the airsoft industry to keep it alive, but insists replica guns that look too real can be dangerous.
Do you understand why that might be a worry?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we advise everybody that are dealing with these airsoft guns to treat them like a real firearm.
But when it comes to the law, fans of airsoft say they don't want their fake firearms treated like the real thing. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
A deadly cyclone has killed more than 200 people in Southeast Africa. We'll have more on one of the strongest and longest-lasting tropical storms on record after the break. More than 200 people are dead as a record-setting cyclone batters several countries in southern Africa. Cyclone Freddy is carving a path of destruction from Malawi to Mozambique. And as we hear from CBC's Lindsay Duncombe, many fear there will be more deaths.
This is what happens when one of the most sustained storms on record hits one of the world's most vulnerable populations.
And people are gone. People are gone. Things are gone. Everything is gone. It's gone down.
Entire communities washed away.
Plenty of bodies down there in the mud there.
Cyclone Freddy's death toll in Mozambique and Malawi is officially more than 200. That number is expected to rise. So far, we have recovered 30 bodies, he says, but we are not yet done. Tens of thousands are displaced. This woman saved her children, but lost everything else. I have no food, blanket, clothing, she says. Scientists are still calculating the data, but it is believed Freddy was the longest-lasting cyclone ever. The power of its winds having more energy than an entire U.S. hurricane season. Cyclone Freddy developed near Australia in early February, picking up strength as it crossed the Indian Ocean to make landfall first in Madagascar, then Mozambique, and remarkably strengthening again for a devastating hit to the north.
Because of climate.
This climate scientist grew up where the cyclone hit in Mozambique and says a warming planet is making storms worse.
So it might be that because of increasing of sea surface temperatures and increases in moisture, there was a perfect condition for the tropical cyclones to continue to live in the ocean and travel to the land and cause all the damage that we are seeing now.
Mozambique's coastline means it is likely to bear the brunt of a changing climate, a cruel fact of geography when you consider how little the impoverished country has contributed to climate change. Freddy's aftermath will make existing challenges in the region worse. There are concerns about cholera, and people who had little have so much less. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, London.
Meteorologist John Sauder joins us now. It is weird to see on that map how the Cyclone Freddy just kind of bounced between the two land surfaces.
Yeah, from Madagascar and then to Mozambique, and then it kind of mulled around in the ocean and then went north and made landfall again, likely due to very warm ocean water. And that climate scientist was talking about sea surface temperatures being so warm, and that is really the fuel that feeds a hurricane, a cyclone, a typhoon, that sort of thing. So, yeah. Amazing to see. All right, much calmer here. Want to get right to the current temperatures, -3. We're still at that number at the airport. Downtown, we're sitting at -2 degrees, -4 in Morris. And, a much warmer feeling day today without that wind that was gusting like it was yesterday. But there's a look at some of the numbers out to the west, -3 in Brandon, -5 in Melita, a pair of zeros in Sprague and Kenora. And as we head to the north, still some snow to come tonight through Thompson, likely another couple of centimeters and still some periods of snow. But from west to east, it'll all start to clear as that low pressure system continues to pull away to the east. Right now, this cloud cover is giving a little bit of snowfall in the southernmost part of the province and off into northwestern Ontario's. At least a chance of flurries in Kenora tonight, but 2 to 4 centimeters in Fort Francis tonight, and Dryden will pick up a couple of centimeters as that snow continues to make its way out to the east. In the evening hours for Emerson, Steinbach, Sprague, we've got a little bit of light snow. Pinawa will see some flurries. Here in Winnipeg, I think just cloudy. We're right on the edge of it. Might see some flakes around 9 o'clock. Few of those around Brandon, Morden. Basically, Trans-Canada Highway and south is where we'll see a little bit of light snow through the night tonight, and then just cloudy skies overnight. Tomorrow, a couple more centimeters is what we're looking at in Lynn Lake and Thompson. And then as we head to tomorrow, we're looking at just periods of light snow in Thompson and a couple of centimeters around Norway House and periods of light snow out into Island Lake. Temperatures -9 to -10 in the west. That's pretty seasonal for the western sections of northern Manitoba. Here tomorrow, pretty dry, still windy though, and this time the wind is out of the northwest, 30 gusting to 50. A lot of that through the Red River Valley. Quite windy down near Emerson as well. Not so windy out into the White Shell, but temperatures are much cooler as well. So it's going to feel much, much cooler tomorrow. Another couple of centimeters on the way in Fort Francis and in Dryden.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Scenes of uprooted trees and downed branches are common in those reports we bring you after violent storms. Now, in many of those cases, the tree has to be cut down and removed. But that's not always the situation. As CBC's Victoria Walton shows us, sometimes a tree that's still healthy can be left in place and straightened.
When Marie McKenna bought this property in Milton Station in 2008, she loved the blue spruce out front. It grew for years outside her business, but since Fiona, the tree hasn't looked the same.
Created a lot of privacy in this location coming up to the front door, as well as shelter for the birds and that sort of thing.
People like Kurt Laird can make these trees stand tall again. With equipment like these ropes and pulleys and some elbow grease, he's saving trees that would otherwise have to come down.
We attach one point to the tree and another point to a solid anchor, but it is manual force. We have a lever that we pull, and it shortens the rope and brings the tree to the upright position.
Laird says there aren't many people on the island who want to do this type of work because the process can take years. It's not as simple as just standing the tree up again. He comes back often to check that the roots are growing, the tree isn't dying, and that the support ropes are doing their job.
We put the supports in, and then we kind of monitor them to make sure that the tree doesn't grow around those supports, because there is a lot of pressure on them. People, even in the trade, find it a bit of a daunting task, and it's and there's a lot of follow-up, which takes time.
Laird is one of the landscapers training others to straighten trees in a course offered at the Farm Centre by Landscape New Brunswick and PEI. The association says there's high demand right now, but not everyone can do it.
It's kind of a specialized thing because there's right ways and wrong ways to do it. You don't want to straighten a tree that's going to be constantly unstable and subject to blowing back over again. So there is a certain amount of expertise that goes into it.
McKenna's tree will have to wait until spring once the ground has thawed, but she's eager to see it standing tall once again. As for Laird, he hopes other landscapers can see the benefits of preserving the trees that are already there. Victoria Walton, CBC News, Milton Station.
A Thompson, Manitoba man has been inducted into the Canadian 5-Pin Bowling Hall of Fame. We'll bring you a story after the break. Here. A man from Thompson has been called a legend in the sport of five-pin bowling. Now he's been officially inducted into the Canadian Five-Pin Bowling Hall of Fame, which came as a wonderful surprise.
I was very excited actually to be recognized because I put 4 years of my life on the bowling five-pin.
Makes me very happy to know that he's going to be in there for all the time so everyone else can see what a great player he was in his generation.
He's from Thompson, Manitoba. He's just one solid, steady performer. DiVirgilio, he said yes when the ball was halfway down the lane.
I watched him do a roll-off once where he threw 18 strikes in a row over 2 games. I remember it to this day how incredible it was just to see that. Very rare. When he was at the top of his game, he was, like I said, arguably the best in Canada for a period.
And it's on the head pin again. Jericho had an amazing percentage of strikes for hits in this series.
I was rated #1 across the country because I entered a lot of tournaments I was winning. So there was a point system, which I was the #1.
He's been around, knows how to win, and he's very dedicated to the game.
I've been bowling 2 or 3 times a month. I went nationally. Every province I went more than once, 5 times probably.
He was a Masters champion in Winnipeg in 1979.
When I first watched him play, and the game was a different game back then, it was more of a accuracy, like slower shots would work when the pins were free fall as opposed to strings, and he was just so deadly accurate, like he didn't seem to ever miss.
And yes.
We've had a ton of great players up in northern Manitoba as I grew up, and he was probably the best of the best that we had here.
Last ball in the 10th for Nick DiVirgilio.
So he's won multiple national championships representing Manitoba and northern Manitoba.
Nick DiVirgilio, the national champion.
Right now, I'm 78 years old. It's pretty tough to bowl 1 game or 3 games because my knee's not 100%. But I enjoy doing it. I try it, but I can do it. So I gave it up. And I kind of sorry for that, but that's life. And I would try to help the kids, whoever wants teaching, they want assistance. I'll spend time to teach them.
Anything he tells me, I try to use in my game because he's been through all of that before. What would Nick do in this position? I've definitely thought about that a few times. I can't express how much he means to me for my game and everything he's done for me here as a proprietor and as a friend, and it's been my honor just to know the man and get to compete and play with him as well. Thanks, Nick. I'm back today. I'll be back for some.
Congratulations, Nick, a well-deserved honor. NASA has unveiled the spacesuit it plans to use for its next mission to the moon. The gear would be worn by astronauts during walks on the lunar surface or for the upcoming Artemis 3 moon mission.
And this is going to be a huge improvement over the Apollo suits. The Apollo suits didn't have many of these types of joints that we've put in this suit, so the astronauts will be more comfortable, have an easier time walking, performing tasks, getting down to to pick up a rock or something like that, or use a geology tool.
You heard me laugh and John say he wants one of those suits. They'll be sleeker, designed for greater mobility. The new helmet improves visibility. It'll provide more protection from the moon's harsh environments and extreme temperatures. It's designed to reflect heat and keep future moonwalkers cool. The final version will be white, made of mylar and Kevlar. NASA says it's aiming to land 2 astronauts on the moon's south pole in late 2025. Tonight on The National, a CBC News exclusive, Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault talks with Lisa LaFlamme about her controversial exit and her next chapter.
You talked about feeling blindsided. That was a word that you used. Was there absolutely no hint that this was coming?
Everything in that tweet stands to this day.
Blindsided.
As I said, I think you live this same reality. In daily news, I would wake up every single day and have no idea what would happen between the moment I woke up and when I ended up back in my home after midnight. The same was true that day. You adapt to whatever it is, and that is what we are trained to do, is react to sudden change. And when I put it in perspective, and I do all the time, I think about, you know, the soldiers who we saw lose their legs in Afghanistan, or, you know, babies born in tarpaulins after the earthquake in Haiti. All of these things, those are sudden changes they don't come back from. We do. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, the comeback is better than the setback.
You can see the full interview on The National tonight at 8 if you're watching CBC News Network. It's 10 here on CBC TV, and you can also find it when you want to, streaming on CBC Gem and CBC News Explore. John Sauder is back with your 7-day forecast, then we'll bring you your daily lift after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Okay, normal high right now is -1, and we're looking at -8 to -10 next few days, and a couple of windy days ahead as well. Now, the second half of the weekend, we start to warm up, and if you look at the right side of your screen, and although there is cloud and snow on Wednesday, we're looking at highs that are above 0. So, yeah, I can look forward to that, I know. sometimes being asked for money can lead to kind of an awkward moment.
Yeah, but sometimes it can lead to a beautiful moment. Here's your daily lift.
Hey, sir, sorry to bother. Trying to buy this Canucks shirt for my kid. Do you have like $1? Like
What's that?
I'm like $1 short for this shirt for my kid. It's his birthday today.
Oh.
Wait, do we?
What's your name?
David.
I'm Zach. Nice to meet you, man.
Hey, how's it going?
What's your name, bro?
Jace.
I'm Zach.
Nice to meet you.
You like hockey?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite team?
Canucks.
There you go.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's all I got. So.
I don't want to take $5. I only need like
No,
$1.
it's for your kid.
You sure?
Yeah, of course.
That's your son?
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna give this back.
Thank you.
No. Take it.
Sure.
It was a kindness test.
Oh.
This is actually for him.
Oh, no.
I actually got this for you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And I actually got a surprise for you. The first person who's gonna help me out $1,000.
What?
Cash.
No.
It's $1,000.
Actually?
I'm 100% positive, bro. Can I give you a hug by any chance?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Love you, man.
Thanks so much.
Can you use it?
Yeah.
He just had his chemo.
I had no idea, man. Love you.
Just finished.
Are you a big Canucks fan?
Yeah.
You're going to the Canucks game?
Yeah.
Right now. We're gonna meet all the players.
What are you talking about? We're going to the Canucks game. I don't even know what's happening.
We're going to the Canucks game right now.
That's awesome.
Let's go.
Who's gonna win tonight, Jace? We're going in. Meet the players.
Not many people get opportunity like this. This is like the best day of my life.
The amazing kindness of a TikTok star, just sharing his wealth.
I love that story.
Yeah.
The kid looked just beside himself with excitement.
So
too.
kind, right? You never know what you can do to make somebody's day better. Have a great night.
Good night.